Let's talk now to Tim Cross, who's a retired Army officer. Tim, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Thanks very much for joining us. Quite a significant event, I think, overnight in Israel. You heard probably what I was just talking to Major Doran Spielman about. Do you share his hope that this might change things?
Well, I think we must all share his hope. I mean, it was interesting, the language that he used about how it needed to be leveraged correctly.
Yeah.
I mean, taking out the head of all of these organizations clearly is good news for Israel, and they are feeling very much on the front foot. And psychologically, this is a really big and important boost. But the question is, of course, how then do you leverage it? My concern is, although people like Sinwar can't be replaced easily, nonetheless, there are a lot of a new generation coming through who will be prepared to step up and take their place. The problem with all of these operations, and I take this back to places like Northern Ireland and the Balkans and elsewhere that I served, if you imagine a sort of target, an archery target, in the center are people like Sinwar, the brutal thugs who are prepared to kill and so forth and plan all these operations. And obviously, from a military point of view, they're the people you want to target. But outside that central ring is an inner ring of people who wouldn't want to do the sort of things they're doing, but are very sympathetic to the cause. They're prepared to finance and arm and hide weapons and hide people and put up with what's going on. And outside that inner ring, is again, a large number of people who wouldn't do any of those things, but are nonetheless sympathetic to the cause. And as you take out that central core, the danger is you pull people in from the inner circle and the outer circle to replace that inner core. So there needs to be some real wisdom here, and I think some integrity and character with the leadership of Israel who've got to seize this moment. Now, what does that look like? Well, it does obviously mean a preparedness to talk, a preparedness to say, look, let these hostages go, and we are prepared to talk. Because from a military point of view, it's pretty difficult to see how much more they can achieve in Gaza. I mean, you made the point that the building that Sinwar was caught in had already been hit.
Right.
I mean, it's, but turning more rubble into more rubble is not going to help much.
Right.
Now, there is an argument Israel would put up, and a lot of people would say, is there's still a lot of terrorists there, there's still a lot of tunnels and equipment and so forth. But you get to a point where, from a military perspective, all you can do from a military point of view is establish some sort of security where within that security, politics and diplomacy has to take over, and there has to be some sort of solution. So if this moment is not seized, if other people come through and replace that inner core, youngsters who are prepared to, take on this role of leadership and continue to cause the damage they've been causing, then this moment will slip away, and it could slip away quite quickly. Yeah,
I mean, I was talking to Philip Ingram, who you may know earlier on in the show, and I said, is this a sort of an IRA situation almost, that when the army went into Northern Ireland and they kind of, sort of defenestrated the IRA and they had the Good Friday Agreement and suddenly there was peace, but there were then all these splinter groups like the Continuity IRA and the Real IRA and all of that, and you get the sense that this is a bit similar, don't you?
Yeah, you do. I mean, I served in Northern Ireland in the 70s. I was a bomb disposal operator in Northern Ireland, and the point that I was making applied there. As the security forces targeted, the nasty people and killed that core, there were people who moved in from from the inner circle into that core to replace them. Yeah. And what then happened, as you say, over time. And I mean, we should remember. I mean, Northern Ireland started when I was in Sandhurst in 1970. It finished the year I left the British Army in 2007. It was a 30-year campaign. So this thing's been going on a while, but in relative terms, it's relatively short. Yeah. So you do have to work your way through this. But even when you get to that point of the senior leadership beginning to say we cannot go on like this, and therefore we have to be prepared to get around a table and talk, you get all these other splinter groups that pull aside. They don't want to see peace. They lose their power. And all the things that we've talked about, So yeah, it is a very similar situation, but it's not that dissimilar either to many other situations around the world. And somebody has got to grasp this nettle. And the key player, of course, is Netanyahu. I mean, and we all have our own views about how Israel will approach this, but he's clearly a key player, and we just got to hope and pray that he has the wisdom and the integrity to say, this is a key moment, I need to seize it.
Yeah, absolutely. Tim, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. We'd love more time, but we're just running out of it, unfortunately. Tim Cross, a retired Army officer there, with his take on what went on over in the killing of the leader of Hamas. A fascinating conversation, by the way, that we just had with Major Doran Spielman, who talked us through exactly how they found these terrorists. They didn't know that it was Sinwar. They didn't know that he was the leader of Hamas, but they knew that he was a terrorist. They knew that they were tracking him. He had gone into the building because it had already been destroyed, thinking that the Israelis won't come back for me. But they did come back, and they finished him off. And it's an incredible story, and we'll talk more about that coming up.